Welcome to our class where we're continuing to learn about schools of organizational change. For this class, we're going to be talking about a model called push and pull model. And in addition to that, we're going to be looking at learning organizations. Now, so far, we've looked at two specific change models. We have looked at ADKA model. We've looked at Cutler-Wayne, and now I want us to talk about the push and pull model. So the push and pull model is a model that is used in group organizational change. It recognizes that there are two forces within an organization, that change can actually be pushed down or it can bubble up. Change can be coming from top management, coming downwards, or it could be bubbling from any section, any part of the organization, even the informal groupings, and actually bubbling up. So I'm introducing to you push and pull model. And in addition to that, we're going to also be talking about learning organizations. Learning organizations. So welcome, Dr. Linda here, Learning with Dr. Linda. If you've not subscribed to our channel, please do so that you can be able to be getting our classes whenever we upload, whenever I upload. All right. So the push and grow model. Now, there are two kinds of change management processes. Change can either be pushed down, or it can be pulled, where people are attracted to the change and they actually embrace it. One thing we all need to understand is that change is constant and nothing remains the same. 2020 has actually taught us that nothing remains the same, that a lot of things can actually change. We can change how we interact. We can change how we learn in the classrooms. We can change how our different countries and economies interact with one another. A lot has happened during these 2 years that has really awakened us to change. So change is always constant and nothing remains the same. Now, push model is when change is forced, and it's forced because of some urgency. Change is a means of survival, and it is crisis-oriented. Push model is where change comes from the top management coming down. And in this case, what we mean is that change is forced because people are not willing to change, or change is forced because of some constraints within an organization. Maybe they're constrained in terms of time, maybe they're also constrained in terms of resources, and something has to be done, and it has to be done now. There has to be aspect of urgency, and survival is critical. So people are actually forced to change. The pull model is where people attract the change. You know, they are already opened. They are looking forward for the change, and because they are looking forward for the change, the moment such an opportunity arises or provides itself, people are endeared to want that kind of change. They are endeared to the innovation. They look at change as being positive and they work towards it. Rather than change being seen as a survival, it's actually seen as an opportunity. And I think different settings like what we're having now with the COVID-19 and learning online, learning virtually, for some people, it could be survival. They have to teach this way for survival. Other people who are, say, content creators, people who would want to reach more audience, they could look at it from being an opportunity. So the same change, the same trigger of change, but different management process. There are those that look at it from being push, there are those that look at it from being a pull model. So when does the push model work? The push model works when the goals are short-term and urgent, when time is of essence, when resources are low, When there's need for financial emphasis, there are financial constraints. When there's a crisis, in organizations that have an authoritarian leadership style, command and control environment, where people are likely to resist change, and change is very important, and there's urgency towards that change, then organizational leaders are likely to actually push the change downwards. Now, the grow model. The grow model is where change bubbles from bottom going up, or from different corners of the organization. The hierarchies are not followed. There's no bureaucracy. Change could come from any sphere within the organization. Now, this happens when the purpose of change is to build capacity, when buy-in of the employees is very crucial, when the change is long-term. It's not just an urgent change. It's not survival. It's not a crisis. It's because people have seen an opportunity to grow themselves. It focuses on the human resource, and these people are willing to participate in the change and look at it as being positive. Change bubbles from bottom up. It's not pushed down, it bubbles up. This kind of a change works mostly with participatory management styles in organizations that are flexible, that are agile, that have a culture of innovation, and that have embraced the learning culture, where knowledge can come from anywhere, where it is open. There's an open culture where knowledge sharing is celebrated and not demonized. Now, what determines whether an organization embraces a push or a pull model? A push model would work in instances where there's very strong formal structures, or where the role of the management is really strong, where it is what the management says, and so things are pushed downwards. But in instances where organizations are flexible, the management style is participative, maybe laissez-faire, where the local leaders have a lot of power, where there's a lot of group dynamics and informal groupings are very strong, we're likely to see a pull model. Now, how much to depend on a formal structure to drive change? If an organization depends highly on formal structures to drive change, meaning the bureaucracies, the hierarchies, the management, then is an instance that the push model could work best. But in instances where the informal structures are there, they are vibrant, the people are aligned to the different groupings within the organization, every member's decisions and input is taken into account, then there's a chance that the pull model is going to thrive. Now, the role of double loop learning. How does learning take place in your organization? Do they allow for assumptions to be questioned, questions to be reframed? Does learning come from both sides? Management learn from the people on the ground, and the people on the ground learn from the management. There's that double loop learning. If that is there, then there's a chance that this organization is likely to embrace the pull model. Role of personal vision, mastery, and intrinsic motivations. In instances where people's personal vision aligns with organizational vision, where people are encouraged to have expertise and to have mastery, and where intrinsic motivation carries the day and not just extrinsic. People are motivated from the inside because they love the work that they do. They are valued, they are celebrated. Whatever they say is taken up in the decision making. Then there's a chance that a pull model can actually thrive. Now, a pull model relies heavily on a learning culture, embraces a learning culture, and a learning culture is an organization that is a learning organization. And this is where we distinguish between organizational learning and learning organizations. Are they synonyms? Organizational learning is more of a verb. It's something that organizations do. It's conceptualized as processes or activities that organizations engage in to acquire knowledge. But a learning organization is a noun. It's an entity. It's a culture that an organization has. An organization that is a learning organization has a culture of learning. Now, all organizations learn. All organizations are likely to have, workshops, seminars, somebody coming with new ideas, but not all organizations are learning organizations. For an organization to be a learning organization, it has to have a culture, a deliberate culture or effort to have members learn. It's not just periodic, it's not just sporadic, it's not just a one-time event. Learning is a culture. Every day, the organizational members are learning from each other, being very receptive to new information, being receptive to new ways of doing things, receptive to new tools, new techniques. Now, when an organization is like that, we say they have a learning culture. So what are the characteristics of a learning organization? People are continually expanding their capacity to create the results that they desire. They're not waiting for fate. They know that they can actually create their own future. They allow for expansive patterns of thinking. People are not, they're not put in thinking a box, diverse thinking is encouraged and it is allowed. And there are collective aspirations where personal aspirations, personal values, personal goals are aligned with organizational goals, and people are continuously learning together. So learning organizations embraces that kind of openness to learning, openness to expansion of knowledge, openness to sharing of information. And it is backed up by these 5 disciplines by Peter Senge. Peter says there are 5 disciplines of learning organizations where an organization looks at itself from a systems thinking. You don't think of yourself or of your department being separate from the entire organization. You look at it from being part of the system, being a subsystem of the broader organization. You don't work in isolation because you are part of the bigger organization. Personal mastery, where people are encouraged to have personal expertise, to be experts in their own fields, to be able to provide knowledge, to be able to provide skills, mentor models, building shared vision, getting a mindset of sharing the vision, sharing skills, sharing knowledge, and one that encourages team learning. So those are the 5 disciplines of learning organizations. And you have just said that learning organization is a culture. It's a culture that you usually see within organizations that have a pull model. And a push and a pull model, we've actually seen that they are theories, or it's a model that is within the group level of organizational change, where change is not seen from an individual, but it is seen from a group perspective. Well, going to meet next time, we talk about force field analysis. Until then, have a wonderful time. Goodbye.